Sports Minutes with Ziaul Raushan.
Money FM 89.3. It's time for Sports Minutes with me, Ziaul Raushan. Now, big breaking news on Tuesday, the 24th of June, as exclusively broken by Deepanraj Ganesan of the Straits Times. Tsutomo Ogura has left his position as head coach of the Singapore men's national team, with the FAS later confirming that Gavin Lee is set to take interim charge of the Lions. Joining me to discuss and dissect the what's, whys, hows and whens is none other than the man who broke the story himself, Deepanraj Ganesan. Deepan, busy Tuesday morning?
Very busy Tuesday morning, but I would just like to point out that it wasn't an overnight thing. It's been brewing for a while now. Was just waiting for the right time to drop it, and today was the day.
Yeah, you set me up in a good way for this conversation, because that's exactly what I want to talk to you about. Tell me about this timeline, because it broke on Tuesday, the 24th of June. But when did you first hear of the possibility, and when did Ogura make his decision clear to the FA?
Yeah, I mean, I heard as early as sometime after the AFF. That was when I first sort of got a hint that this might be a possibility. But I think in terms of the actual conversations, I think that took place several weeks ago now. In fact, I mean, let's be honest, Raushan, you and I had a discussion before the Bangladesh game, and I told you that I hope they win this game, because at that point, to me, it seemed quite certain that it would be his last game. And I really wanted him to end on a good note, and glad that he did.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give the listeners a bit more insight, that pre-Maldives game, I still remember you texted me and said this could be Ogura's final presser in Singapore, and both of us made it there in person just because we value the contributions of the man. Let's talk about the man and his contributions in a short while. But first, personal reasons is what is officially cited in both your article as well as FAS's release, right? It's quite vague. Any clarity or indication if there's more behind it?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, I would just like to point out to any skeptics out there that this is indeed really personal reasons as to why he is leaving. I know people will try to be the ITKs of this world and say that, oh, there's more to it. It's a new broom that sweeps clean and whatnot with Forrest Lee and his team coming on board. I can categorically say that's not true. In fact, the FAS Exco tried their best to persuade Ogura to stay. I don't want to sort of overstep my boundary and reveal more than I should. But I would just say that Ogura is leaving for personal reasons, and it's something that we have to respect. It's something that he feels very, very strongly about. So yeah, I would hope people don't speculate unnecessarily. This is indeed the reason that he's leaving.
Yeah, speculation will be rife, especially amongst the ITKs, as you mentioned, right? But let's talk about the football. On paper, 16 games played, 5 wins, 3 draws, 8 losses. How do you summarize his 16th month in charge?
Yeah, I would say that it's a bit tough to even sort of assess his time now, because it's a bit too early. I think for any national coach, you've got to give him at least 2 full years before you can really judge things. Of course, there are other coaches that come in that, you can quickly see right away that they're not a good fit. I think with Ogura, I think the jury was still out, but you can only argue with facts, and the fact remains that in the last 2 games, it was going on a good trajectory. I think with the AFF Championships as well, with almost a full SPL only squad, we could see what he could do with players that are perhaps not regular starters anyway. So I think Ogura has done a decent job so far. I would have loved to see him sort of finish his contract and see where we were, because we have started the Asian Cup on a good note. I think against Hong Kong, we should have won the game. Perhaps if certain decisions went our way, we would have won the game. And in Bangladesh, people talk about the second half performance, but people forget that it's an away game. It's not easy to win these games, in a sellout crowd, with a Bangladesh team that's on the up in terms of changes. And we won that game, and I think the players showed a lot of grit, a lot of fight in that game. And it's not something that's easy to implement, and he's implemented it. So I would love to see him finish out this Asian Cup qualifying campaign and see where we would have ended. But again, you can only judge based on results, and I would say you're only as good as your last game. And if that's anything to go by, I think he's done a good job.
Absolutely. And I feel like Ogura himself would have wanted to see out his term, but the private issue was as pressing that he needed to immediately attend to it. And we respect that, right?
Yeah, if I may, I think this is something that I'm aware of. I think as part of the talks that FAS Exco had with him, I think they did try to throw up several options on the table. And I think Ogura could have easily said, hey, you know what, I go back home now to Japan, and I return in September and October to do the job in those months, which means he will have this period to sort of tend to his personal needs and family back home. But I think because he's such a professional coach, he said, that's not something that would help him or the national team. And I think he decided, okay, you know what? I'm not going to work from home, basically. And he decided to step aside. And full credit to him, because some other coach could have easily decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this option. I'm still going to get paid. I'll come back in September, October to take the team, and then we'll go on from there. But that's not something he did. And to that, I respect him fully.
And some others on the FAS payroll might take up their offer of working from abroad as well. That's a separate conversation. Let's talk about Ogura. Beyond the football, beyond the results, you are very fond of the man. I've seen that for myself in interactions, be it in sit-down interviews or press conferences. What do you think he brought to the table as a human being to this role?
Yeah, so I think people sometimes overlook this aspect, but I think it's a very important thing to have. Because when you take over a national team head coach role, you're not just working with players, you're working with media, you're working with the staff, you're working with the FAS staff beyond the national team. And I think he always came across as someone who's respectful, as someone who really likes to work with people. With me and the rest of the media, I thought there was always a mutual respect. The fact that on his first day, he tried his level best to speak English when he could have given his press conference in Japanese. And that followed, right, in terms of pre-match and post-match conferences. He always spoke in English, even though, yes, at times it may be difficult to understand. But it's the dedication that he showed to his craft, which I really respect. And also, people also overlook the fact that to build a stronger national team, you need support. And the support is not just from the fans, it's from the media as well. And he really did his best to build that relationship. I would say, even with the fans, I think it was almost his idea to have fans to come for training, and that had an effect as well. I think players sort of appreciated that. The fans, of course, appreciated that. It's an insight and access that perhaps they did not have before. So all these things are important. Will every coach really pay that much attention to these things? I'm not quite sure, because most coaches, they will come in, they will want to coach the team to be better, but they might not really want to take up all the other aspects. So for that, I really respect him.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. I just want to ask you this. I understand what you mean about not being able to judge because he didn't serve the full 2 years. But all things considered, do you think he's leaving the national team in a better place than when he first found it?
Absolutely. Because you have to remember when Nishigaya was...
I tried to forget those dark days.
When Nishigaya left, we were not in a good place in terms of the morale within the team. But you just look at the last game, the Bangladesh game. It could have been so easy for the team to collapse, given what was happening in the game. I mean, the flying elbows, the atmosphere, the fact that, in the second half, Bangladesh had the momentum. It would have been so easy for any Lions team to collapse. But this one did not. They held their own. Of course, yeah, we can talk about how Bangladesh could have got a penalty and whatnot. But it's the core of the team that is quite united. You can see that from their outfield behaviors. You can see that from how from the bench they sort of encouraged one another. So that's not something that can be bought easily. That's not something that any coach in the world can build easily. And it might not be down to Ogura alone. It could be the work of coaching staff. It could be the work of even the senior players within the dressing room. But all in all, you can see that this team is united, and it's something that we couldn't say in Nishigaya's era.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, we're going to talk about Gavin Lee as well as Forrest Lee and his new FAS Exco leading the charge for a new coach. But before that, Deepan, we've heard from you, we've heard from the association. Are we going to hear from the man Ogura himself soon?
A teaser. Yeah, so of course, I think it's important that people hear from Ogura in terms of looking back on his time as national coach and perhaps what's next and what he hopes next for the national team. I can say that, yes, I've sat down with him and that story is coming very soon.
And if you're listening to this after Wednesday, be sure to check out the link in the description because Deepan's exclusive sit-down with Tsutomo Ogura, exit interview of sorts, the link is available there. Let's move it on to the next big news, that is Gavin Lee has been placed in interim charge. What do you make of the appointment? Yeah,
so I think when you look for an interim coach, it needs to be someone that you can appoint very quickly. And I think the way the circumstances have panned out has worked quite perfectly in FAS's favour here. It's interim charge. We know for a fact that the FAS has already started looking for a permanent successor, and that will take time, of course. That's a process there to be made. For the fools who have been online talking about how, why couldn't they have started this earlier, why now and all, because you have to complete a process of getting someone out first before you can start the process, because it's very easy when you start talking to coaches where that information then leaks. So that's something I just wanted to address as well. With Gavin, I think it's a smart appointment for now in terms of interim charge, because it's something, like I said, you can do right away. And because he's been already involved in the team, it's not so much of a learning period for him or for the players. So if he's taking a game in the September window, that transition is going to be almost seamless, right? Because we know that the way Ogura likes to work is the on-field coaching or training session is carried out by Gavin Lee, and Ogura sort of oversees things in the way that Sir Alex Ferguson did when he was at Manchester United. That's the approach that has been taken with the national team. And Gavin, as we all know, is a very smart coach, a very good coach, a very capable coach. And I think that he's someone who I'm very happy for. Look, we take a step back now. We look at what Gavin has achieved in his career. He was 28 when he took on this coaching role in the SPL. It's mind-boggling, you know. Sometimes we take it for granted because we see Gavin week in, week out, and we take it for granted that someone of that stature and someone who has no sort of background in professional football come into the job and be able to do that straight away. How many teams can dare say that they have identity? You know, we sometimes joke about Gavin Ball, but it is a fact. It's Gavin Ball. Like, Tampines Rovers play a certain way because of Gavin Lee. How many teams in the SPL can say that they play a certain way because of ex-coach? So I think he's deserved it, and I'm proud as a Singaporean to see that a guy who at 28 came into the SPL and now at I think 34 or 35, I can't remember now, is a interim head coach of the national team. We should be proud. He's done it on his own in the sense of taking his coaching badges, getting to the level that he's at, and we all know how hardworking he is. So I'm happy. I'm happy to see that. I don't see any reasons why we need to come up with any brickbats here. I'm happy for him, and I hope he gets to take charge of at least one game in September.
There you have it, conspiracy theorists out there. This is for you. This is nothing to do with cloak and daggers or anything like that. It's a very straightforward interim appointment for Gavin Lee. I will ask Deepan in a short while if Gavin is on that long list of replacements, but before that, zooming into the new FA under Forrest Lee, right? This is their first major decision. What's your sensing of what way are they looking? Is it a cautious approach to the next hire, or is it an ambitious approach?
I would say it would lean more towards the ambitious approach. I think Forrest definitely would want the best for the national team, just as he has done with the Sailors. And I think they will go about this approach in that manner. I think it will be very different from the approach taken by Bernard Tan and his exco at that time. I think this one will be a proper global search, overused term in recent years, but I think it will be a proper search, and which is why I almost say that Gavin is an interim choice, because I think even Gavin would admit that at this stage he is not quite national team head coach material yet. I think that will come one day, or in fact I hope that it will come one day where I'm able to report on a game where Gavin Lee is the permanent head coach of the national team. That will come one day, but in the interim, so as to speak, I think we need to look for someone who has that caliber, that experience, and the know-how in this region to take Singapore football forward.
I do wonder if Sports Minutes will still be broadcasting when Gavin Lee becomes full-time national team coach. Conversation for another day. I have to ask you this. You talked about the analogy in terms of new broom sweeping clean. We know this is not because of a new broom, but is this an opportunity for Forrest's exco and him for a clean slate for them in terms of putting their own man in charge and then taking the project forward?
Yeah, I think the only thing we can say about what works in sort of Forrest's team's favour is it's an opportunity to hire their own man. Ogura was not their own man, right? I mean, it's something that they inherited. And I think they were happy to keep him, of course, but, you know, circumstances have panned out such a way where they have to hire their own man. So this is what they'll be judged on. We can sort of wax lyrical all about Forrest and what he's done with LCS, but this next hire is what they'll be judged on.
If you were to be consulted regarding that next hire, I mean, I'm sure FAS people are listening to this anyway, but if you were to be directly consulted, right, would you say plump for pedigree or personality?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer. I mean, ideally you would have both, right? Because I think our players need someone who is charismatic and has that personality to really get the best out of them. I think Ogura was able to do that to some extent. I think by his own admission, Ogura would have been wanting to be a bit more on the communication side, where he could have said more and sort of got things across more clearly for the players to understand. I would say that if it was up to me, and I'm sure there are way more capable people at the FAS who will make these choices, I would want someone who has the sort of experience in this region, someone who has coached in this region, someone who has brought the best out of players in this region, and someone who has the stature to come in and garner respect right away. Keep in mind that we are in the midst of an Asian Cup qualifying campaign. We have no time to bait in people, no time to show people the ropes, no time for people to understand the culture. You come in right away, you have the tactical know-how, the regional know-how, and the local national team know-how to come in and work wonders right away. And I hope they make the right decisions, because this is an Asian Cup qualifying campaign where we are at the top of the group at the moment.
I was going to ask you that in terms of the Asian Cup qualifying campaign, because yes, September is an international window where we're going to play friendlies, but October there's that double header against India. On paper, June to October is a couple of months away. But is the new FAS Exco aware of this timeline that they're working towards? And are they almost hamstrung because they need to get the appointment right before October?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good and bad thing. I think it sort of makes it more of an urgent matter than not. But I also think that it gives them an opportunity to work towards something where they can now see that, hey, we are top of the Asian Cup qualifying group and there's 4 games to go. We can do this. You know, if we get the correct appointment in, we can go and make history. So, which is why I say the next appointment is so important. And just maybe as a joke, but we may well talk about him more in the future. But I remember when Nishigaya was linked to the job, we had Stefan Constantine, who was on the shortlist, or as we reported to be on the shortlist. It would be quite funny if we hire the guy that knows India in and out, and he leads us to victory in those 2 games, because those 2 games are crucial. So why not, get the guy that knows them best?
I hope you're aware of how much weight your words carry, because you need to be careful when you put things like this into the universe. On the topic of replacements, definitely can't be Japanese, right?
Yeah, okay, I understand where you're getting at and the sort of the joke behind it, but I just also want to make this clear. I think we cannot at all rule out any nationality just based on the previous 3 appointments. I think the best man for the job should be hired, and if he's Japanese, he's Japanese. I think this exco needs to be given a chance where they can put 4 or 5 names on that short list and then assess from there and speak to them in person, and then realize, okay, you know what? Person X is the best man for the job, and if he's Japanese, so be it.
Because I hear the listeners talking to me as they listen to this, you said 4 or 5 names on the short list. You're a man in the know. You're Mr. Exclusive. I'm calling you Professor. I'm calling you Oracle. Are you at all going to give us at least a few names?
Not at the moment. Sorry to disappoint. I've heard some names, but I don't want to put it out there just yet. I think let the due process take place. I'm very sure in the weeks ahead, or even a month or so ahead, I'm sure before anything else, people will be hearing from me in terms of the names and the candidates lined up. I would just like to take this opportunity also to just talk about very quickly about the work that ST does, and not just me, right? It's now 3 straight coaches that we have sort of broken the news on in terms of them leaving the job. This doesn't come easily. It's down to me and my colleagues' dedication to the job, because we always are quite on the ground in terms of listening to people and what's going on. So I hope people appreciate that and continue to subscribe and read the Straits Times, because it's important that the work that we do is not taken for granted, and it's something that we truly cherish, and I hope to work on these stories in the future.
Absolutely. And I know this is an audio medium, but I can see the gleam in Deepan's eyes, because he has a lot of joy in bringing these stories to you, the listeners, and I have fun talking to him and quizzing him on it. Final question with regards to Ogura. When we look back on Ogura's tenure, 16 months in charge of the Lions, would it be a missed opportunity or simply just another name in a long, blurry list? I think given what's transpired in the last few years, I think Ogura will stick in my memory. Like I said, I think he built that personal connection with the fans and members of the media. And also another thing is, I think he's proven me wrong on a few occasions. I'll be very honest to admit that when we went away to Malaysia in that AFF championship, where we needed at least a draw to progress into the semi-finals, I remember telling you, no chance Malaysia wins this game, and we got a draw. Going to Bangladesh, I said it's going to be a tough game. They're on the up. It's a sold-out stadium. I think it's going to be a loss. I was proven wrong. Lions won 2-1.
And I think that sort of sums up his tenure. I think he's always brought the best out of players. It has not always been consistent, and I think that will come with time if he had stayed on. But I will remember him very well.
Yeah, and my long-standing memory of Ogura will always be his first game in charge. 2-0 down to China, we rallied to 2-2. As fans who've been starved of any form of success, we were so excited. But he towed that line. He set the scene by saying this is not a reason to celebrate. And I think at the end of 16 months, he can leave with his head held high. Speaking of leaving with your head held high, Deepan, thank you so much for continually bringing the exclusives to us. Keep them coming, and I'll host you on Sports Minutes very, very soon.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Sports Minutes on Money FM 89.3.